Today, I'm joined by Taylor Allen. Taylor works with businesses to grow from the inside out and the outside in. She helps organizations build stronger brands, create better customer experiences, improve operational effectiveness, align leadership teams, and develop the systems needed for sustainable growth. Her experience spans client success, brand strategy, organizational development, training, customer service, and helping founders navigate the challenges that often come with growth. Today, we're talking about business clarity, leadership, culture, growth strategies, customer experience, a little bit of AI, and why so many organizations struggle to scale effectively. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here.
So, Taylor, for people that are meeting you for the first time, tell us about your journey. How did you end up helping businesses solve these internal and external growth challenges?
Absolutely. I definitely have a non-linear history and I guess you could say employment track record. I kind of, definitely have some zigzags in my road. But how I got to where I am today is I started in luxury fashion and wanted to work with runway shows. And then I kind of got my hands on mom and pop labels. And I really just wanted to help them grow. I was like, you know what? People are buying from these huge labels. I mean, even if they're luxury labels, they were so big. And then I found, these people that were working out of their Soho studios had their own sewing machines. I was like, that's who I want to help grow. So then when I kind of, tackled the fashion industry and was able to help market and grow those brands, I was like, why am I just staying in fashion? Like I can do this in every single niche that exists. And I want to, keep people away from huge conglomerates. I want to keep people off Amazon, keep people off, just these really, really big like conglomerates. So that's why I focused on helping mom and pop shops grow because I just want, people to realize that that dollar goes way farther when you spend it with a local person, that you're actually paying for, their students, or I'm sorry, their child's, ballet shoes or their child's, hockey equipment rather than giving money to Meta or, these huge companies where you have no idea where your dollar goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and by doing that, I mentioned in the intro, one of the things that I think you've highlighted from when we were talking, you often describe your work as helping businesses grow from the inside out and the outside in.
Yeah.
What does that mean in practice?
It's really just thinking outside the box. What could work for one business isn't necessarily going to work for another business. Now with AI, most people think, okay, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to plug everything into ChatGPT or Claude, and like that's my job. That is absolutely not how you help businesses grow. So, some businesses you have to think, okay, maybe this is an internal problem. Maybe we need to trim some fat. Maybe we need to send people to a leadership retreat. And then other times it's outside in. So it's okay, yeah, we need to spend more money on marketing, but it really is taking a look at each business by itself. Like you're not going to get those answers from plugging things into Claude or a robot or AI. It's truly thinking about and assessing and, talking to people in the business, whether it's just, that low man on the totem pole all the way up to the owner. So it's really figuring out what each business needs and then tackling it, as they come.
Where do you think they get it wrong the most?
I think they get it wrong the most when they try and do everything by themselves. It takes a village. So, like I mentioned, I work a lot with mom and pop shops and they don't have the bandwidth to hire, or not even like from a financial standpoint, but just literally hiring takes so much time. So they're like, I can't sit down and interview 20 people. I don't have time. But it is being an entrepreneur, owning a business, even if you're just selling, lemonade, like it takes a village. So I think people try and do everything all at once and they view it as a sign of weakness to ask for help or lean on the community. And it's absolutely not. The biggest thing that I preach when I'm working with a new business owner is it takes a village. You're going to have these 2 a.m. panic moments where you're like, what am I doing in life? I'm not going to make any money. I'm supposed to be contributing to my 401k. I'm supposed to have, health insurance, but being a business owner, sometimes you don't have those things. So it's very, very scary at some moments. So the biggest thing that I can say is, yeah, it takes a village and don't be afraid to lean on people. So I think that's really where people get it wrong. They try and do everything, by themselves.
You work with businesses experiencing things like cultural breakdown, team dysfunction, and leadership misalignment. What are some of the earliest warning signs that those issues are beginning to surface?
This is a tough one because everybody always wants to pretend that everything is fine and dandy. Nobody wants to be the complainer or, admit that the workplace, isn't the most fun all the time. So this is one that takes a lot of finesse. You have to make sure that you're asking the right questions, like probing in the right areas, really leaving no stone unturned. People really, really, really keep their guards up because they don't want to talk bad about where they work. But once you kind of start to discover, hey, there is a missing chunk here. Maybe we don't have enough water cooler talk. Maybe we don't have, it's silly stuff like a happy hour or, just cultural things that people are like, it would be nice if we had that. Just little things go a very long way. And, when you start to talk to people and ask those questions, you'll start to see, people have ideas. They are in this job, they're in their companies all day, every day. People do, I think, ultimately want to make their companies better. So, when you start to ask, what would you do or how would you make this better? People will offer their ideas. So I think that's when you can start to tell, okay, they're not happy. They're starting to come up with ideas, solutions. They want change. And that's, I think, the biggest telltale right in the beginning.
So, how closely connected then are is the company culture and the customer experience? I mean, can customers feel internally dysfunctional even when leadership thinks everything looks fine from the outside?
Absolutely. There is a total direct correlation. When internal people are happy, business is good. You're never going to find, a team that's really, really unhappy, but sales are amazing. That those two, there's absolutely a correlation. That's why I always preach letting people be heard, whether it's, anonymous surveys, things like that. When people feel like their opinions matter, that is when, companies do really well. And when you start to do that, when you're really small, and let's say there's only, five people, then you're 10 people, then you're 20 people. When you start that happiness, that internal happiness and that company culture, when you're five people, that erupts when you're at a 20 person, team. So I think, even my own team, we do weekly check-ins. How's everybody feeling? Is anybody overwhelmed? My team has, this is very much practice what you preach. My team has came to me several times and said, I am way overwhelmed. I'm so grateful for that message. I'm not grateful that they're overwhelmed, but I'm so grateful that they felt comfortable enough to talk to me about it. So I do think, it's just letting people speak freely about how they're feeling. And then once they feel comfortable, happy, valued, you're going to just see sales and numbers go up from there.
And across these companies, across startups, growing companies, and even established organizations, what challenges seem to appear consistently, regardless of the company size?
When you grow too fast, I mean, regardless of size, even if you grow fast, people can feel that. And it's tough because founders get so wrapped up in growing and forget about how important culture is. So, this is a very long answer to your question, I promise. But
That's good.
basically, you have to prioritize those things in the beginning as growth, perpetuates. So it's little things, well, which really aren't that little, but like picking the right health insurance and making sure that families are taken care of, PTO, it's like things like that. That's like, those aren't tiny things. So founders sometimes are like, that's not important for me. Yeah, because, you're the founder, so you can choose your days off. But, people that show up and invest their time and spend more time at work than they do with their family, those little things are important and they're not little. So, yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So, throughout your career, you've led teams, managed client success initiatives, and training employees, build
Yeah.
growth strategies. What leadership lessons have had the biggest impact on you personally?
This is such a backwards way to answer this, but the worst leaders. The worst leaders have the biggest impact on me because I want to be nothing like them. I think it happens a lot in the startup space because people, like old Silicon Valley days when it was like startups are the best thing in the world. Let's all move so fast. Let's like burn out so quick. That was when really leaders weren't leaders. I don't even know what they were doing. Who knows what those leaders were doing, but they didn't care. They didn't care. They would meet somebody and be like, great, if they don't live up to their expectations, fire them in 90 days. Like they weren't growing a company. They were growing like, I don't know, employee numbers. So I think, it's just important to like pay attention to your growth and, yeah, they pay attention to your growth and hold your values, even as you're growing, no matter how fast you're growing. And still to this day, I have these terrible managers. I have PTSD about terrible management. So, when I get a new client and they say, hey, can you, help us with our 30, 60, 90 check-in? Like that is such a great question for me because I've had managers that don't do that. And it was a terrible experience. I think my list of things not to do is bigger than my list of things to do when I am a leader. I know that's a really backwards way to answer your question, but
No, but it's valid.
bad leaders, yeah,
It's valid because, you learn more when you lose than when you win, right? And so
absolutely.
having those negative experiences helps you grow. I see that as a very, very strong point. And, I think that part of that experience is about what you said even earlier, which is finding those leaders that do value what everybody else is bringing to the table, not just pushing their agenda forward. So
Absolutely.
another thing that kind of ties into that a little bit is storytelling. It's become a major part of modern business,
Yeah.
not just marketing, but in company culture. How important is storytelling when building a successful organization?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Storytelling right now is more important than ever. Transparency, where products are coming from, how products are being built, where they're being built is more important than it has ever been. People and consumers are doing their research. They are super loyal to brands. I know they are becoming even more loyal when founders and companies are transparent, whether it is, a scalp care brand, a skincare brand, a clothing brand, a car manufacturing company. People want to know where their stuff's coming from, even if they're spending $20 on it. So, yeah, transparency, storytelling is having a crazy, crazy moment right now. It's for the better. These shady companies, they don't deserve to be, as well off as they're doing. They're stepping on other people's backs to get there, and it has to stop.
Well, another thing that is stepping in on companies that I mentioned in the intro is AI becoming part of nearly every business conversation today. What opportunities do you see for business leaders who embrace AI thoughtfully? And what mistakes are companies making right now when it comes to AI?
I'll start with that one. I think the biggest mistake that people are doing is they are not using their brains. They're not using their creativity. They're not thinking outside the box, and it is obvious. I and a lot of my colleagues come from fashion. We want to see funky stuff. We want to see, pieces that like make our head tilt, and we want to see really weird things. And AI doesn't make weird things. AI makes everything from the same font, the same colors. It is so boring. I am so bored with everything. So I think that's the biggest thing. People are clocking in and AKA they're just logging into Claude and they're not taking their brain outside of Claude. Like I have a friend who is designing an apartment. He plugged in both floor plans in his apartment and then told Claude to come up with the design. And I thought that was so sad because that is the complete opposite of what any architect, artist, interior designer would ever do. So, just from a creative standpoint, it just makes me really sad because you want to see, what people really can do some pretty cool stuff. And if we're all using the same brain, then we're all going to be really bored. But as far as what business owners can do to help, move their businesses forward, I think just be a lot more efficient. I was, working in Claude this morning and I was reviewing a conversation from probably 6 months ago, and just going over data across, all socials and a lot of just numbers. Never in my wildest dreams could I have put together this document, in 20 minutes. It would have taken me probably 20 plus days to do that, but I did it in 20 minutes. So I think it's just, creating some efficiencies and using it to do things that would have taken you a lot longer. And using it that way rather than using it for creative or trying to cut corners. I think just using it smarter, not harder is the name of the game with AI for sure.
Right, right. And in my experience too is AI has to still be used properly. And I say that two ways. One, it's either used to create an authentic connection between two humans, or two, go to your creativity thing. You have to know to talk to it to give the results that you're looking for in a creative way. You can't just say, like your example, you just said, here's two plans, make me one. That doesn't, there's no authenticity to that. And that's
Right.
where it does get boring. And that's the challenge that can be for many creatives among else. So
Yeah.
I think what's I don't know, what's one belief you have about business growth that most people maybe would disagree with?
That you always have to have a website and you should always be doing marketing. I meet with business owners, across all different niches. I'll meet with a construction owner, I'll meet with a, Pilates studio owner, I'll meet with, just all different walks of life, but I will get that person that's like, we don't even have a website. We don't have an Instagram. And it's like, it's 2026. Like, if you want to grow your business, if you want to hand your business down to your children, if you want your business to be around in 20 plus years, you have to have some sort of digital footprint. Maybe they don't want to have their business around in 20 years, but for people that specifically want to grow, you got to adapt to the times.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I often tell people that the website is really just your online business card.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's how you utilize that with all your other systems that makes you attractive.
Yeah.
So looking 3 to 5 years ahead, what
Mhm.
will separate organizations that thrive from like those that struggle?
I really believe it's the creativity. Even if you look back, 5 years, you can see brands that were just using Canva templates or, just stock images. It's those brands that thought outside the box that are still around today. It's the brands that didn't put emphasis on creativity, didn't try and be different than their competitors that are not around. People that, once again, think outside the box, I will say this until I'm blue in the face, will find a way to make it because they're scrappy. They are, willing, they're not afraid to be different. They don't want to look like everybody else. And people that do that, and companies that do that, and brand owners that do that, those are the ones that will be around. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And those that treat their clients right will be around. Customer success, if you prioritize your clients and make it right when they have a bad experience or don't get what they paid for and go the extra mile, you will be around in 3 to 5 years. It's companies and startups that, part of my French, don't give a about
It's
your
YouTube, it's all good.
okay, that don't give a shit about their experience. They just want to grow. They just want to steal people's money. That's going to come around to bite them in the butt. So I do think, thinking outside the box, being creative, not relying on AI all the time, for everything, and just making sure that people have a good experience, you'll be around for a long time.
All right. Well, when your career is all said and done, what impact do you hope you had on the people and the businesses you worked with?
That they feel good and know that they made the world a better place by having their product or company around. And it doesn't matter, once again, if it was a construction company or if it was a Pilates studio, that construction company put a roof over somebody's head. That Pilates studio helped someone get stronger when they were feeling weak. That bakery fed somebody when they were hungry. So it's just that I want to give, that mom and pop business owner a sense of worth and knowing that their business helped someone's day and fulfilled someone's need.
Great. Taylor, listen, this has been an incredible conversation. I think some things that really stood out from this conversation, Growth problems are often leadership problems in disguise.
Yes.
Brand perception starts internally before it ever reaches customers. Culture and customer experience are deeply connected. And, sustainable growth requires alignment, not just activity. And AI can be rewarding to organizations with clear communication and creativity.
Yes. Yes.
Taylor, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. If anyone wanted to learn more about you, where can they find you?
thetacagency.com or LinkedIn, Taylor Allen. And yes, welcoming any questions about branding, marketing, client success, AI, all the above.
Great. Taylor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.